All right, welcome back to the show. We're going to have the one and only with us today. It is Andy Schectman from Miles Franklin Precious Metals, and I want to show you this, but somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and digperspectives.com for exclusive content. Right now, $2.73 trillion market for crypto. The market's up 2.7%, 69,800 plus for Bitcoin, 3,500 almost on the nose for Ethereum, and we see 60 cents for XRP. Let me just see that. That doesn't feel right to me. 59 cents. There we go. I knew it wasn't really the same. All right, but however, what I can tell you is, and you can obviously see, we're looking at a very volatile market, 70,000 plus for Bitcoin, just like that, 3,400 for Ethereum. Here's what we need to know. I'm taking some of my hard-earned profits, and I'm putting them directly into hard assets like precious metals. Miles Franklin, right here. You see it. Look, all you have to do is go to the sign up, and when you go to the sign up, go to this referral code and put in DIG GOLD. That's it. That's all you got to do. And then there you have it. You're buying precious metals, and you won't believe how quick they'll be into your hands. No doubt about it. Now, with me today, ladies and gentlemen, is Andy Schectman from Miles Franklin. Andy, how you doing this morning, man?
Brad, great to see you, brother. I am well, man. I'm well. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Las Vegas, and great to be here and appreciate the invite.
Well, look, I appreciate it as well. And look, you just got back from a beautiful trip in Europe. Just give us a quick takeaway or two before we get down into the business of the day.
Well, I spent 2 weeks. I did a little bit of business in London, as you and I were talking about offline. I'm not quite ready to publicly announce the meetings that I had there, but I will be very, very soon, certainly before I head off to see you in Las Vegas. And then the rest was a little bit of vacation with another couple and my wife. And well, let me tell you what happens when you party in Amsterdam. You know, you end up doing something like this. You know, you get a tattoo on your arm, palladium, silver, platinum, gold. That's what happens when you hang out too late in Amsterdam. And you know, but it was a great time, man. I'll tell you something. You know, a lot of stuff they talk about regarding London, Paris, Amsterdam, and it falling apart and this and that. I didn't see any of it. It was, I felt safe everywhere I was. It was great. It was fun. I don't know. It was just a good time and glad to be back. But, you know, it was cool. It was definitely very cool.
Well, listen, anytime you take a trip and you come back with a tattoo, Eddie, that's a damn good trip. I mean, yeah. In fact, I'm getting ideas here for the Hangover sequel in Europe.
I was going to say, just as long as it's not on my face, right? Exactly.
Well, that's amazing. I'm glad you had a wonderful time. And the tattoo looks great, by the way. So
thank you, brother. And so, you know, my daughter, it's very funny. My daughter, my wife calls her and says, you know, your dad's getting a tattoo. And she's, you know, she said something like whatever. Yeah. And then when she sees it, you know, she's 16. She's like, you got the periodic table of elements on your arm. You're such a nerd. I just thought it was kind of funny. I'm like, yeah, I guess I am, but
you know what?
Whatever. It was cool. It was something I was very, very non-committed to doing. You know, people I'm with are, let's go do it. Let's go do it. And somehow, some way they dragged me into it. I'm glad I did it though, man. I really kind of like it.
Yeah, oh, it looks great, man. No doubt.
I'm already thinking about the second one that's going to go on underneath it. Here I am, never having one. I'm ready for number 2.
Well, this is what happens. Anytime you get a tattoo, I don't have any tattoos currently right now. I've thought about one. I have an idea for one I've wanted for a long time. And everybody always tells me, you want to get a tattoo? Wait 5 years. If you still want it, then go get it again, right? And I always kind of go through this every 5 years. I reset the idea. But, you know, it's just funny to me because, you know, you go to this trip, you're hanging out. Pretty sure some libations were involved, I would imagine.
Yeah,
you know?
Well, in Amsterdam, you could say absolutely, if not other things. But exactly. You know what? And it was 3 hours long, and it was a little bit of you know, it was a little bit of an experience, but I like it. And, you know, the next one is going to say little by little, then all at once, because that to me, Brad, explains the way so many things are happening around us, socially, morally, economically, politically. they seem to be slipping one direction or another, little by little by little by little, then bang all at once. And that phrase logarithmic decay means a lot to me because I think it explains so much that is happening around us. And a little bit of what we'll dig into today. I mean, look at precious metals. For a long time, they've been moving little by little by little. And if you look at what's happened just in the time that I was in Europe, basically 3 weeks ago, gold is up almost $500 in just over 3 weeks. I mean, bang, all at once. Is this the move that we've been waiting for a very, very long time? Is this the move where precious metals are finally being set free, the all-at-once moment from the COMEX manipulation? And I do think, as crazy as I actually think I am for saying this, it feels different this time. It feels as if maybe COMEX has lost control, in particular of the price of gold. But here we are with silver at 29.40, up 81 cents today, approaching $30. And have they lost control of it? And I can tell you why I think they may have lost control of it as we go on here for just a couple of quick minutes. But yeah, Brad, I think that this time it just feels very, very different to me.
Well, I'm inclined to agree with you, Andy, just because of the state of things all around, right? We know the money printing every 100 days. We're adding, $1 trillion to the debt. It's like, yeah, I mean, I think the world and the markets are starting now to really show up and reflect what we all know is soon to be priced in, right? Which is a collapse or a correction of some sort, however hard it goes.
Right. You're right. You have the debt rising at $1 trillion every 3 months, and the U.S. interest expense rising at roughly $100 billion every 3 to 4 months. When people hear these words, I don't think they quite understand it. In terms of how big they are, brother. A trillion seconds ago was 31,688 years ago. So when you talk about numbers being so big and really people not stopping to think just how big they really are, it's a situation where not only that, we have a government that has a $34 trillion debt, but $150 trillion in unfunded liabilities. Social Security, $77 trillion in the hole alone. And when you talk about that kind of a debt burden backed up against $5 trillion in assets, according to the 2022 balance sheet, where the biggest asset of the United States, according to the government, Google it, is student debt. And when Biden, this goofball, talks about giving away $10 billion, it sounds like a lot. It is a lot. It's a drop in the bucket, and it's illegal. But aside from that, it's a drop in the bucket, and it is the largest asset of the U.S. government, the second one being military and the third being land and property. But we are a country that is essentially insolvent and broke, and a Fed who is trapped. Will they raise rates? Won't they raise rates? It's one of these deals where they are addicted to spending. They cannot stop spending. In the new budget that they just passed, $850,000 for LGBTQ senior housing. Why not just call it all senior housing? Point of it is that our government and our fiscal irresponsibility is something that's not going away. The Treasury, the debt rose by $168 billion in 20 days from March 1st to March 20th. We are at a point, Brad, it's unsustainable. And it's like a heroin addict that just can't stop. And no matter what, even though they're creating, they're falling off the cliff. And we're getting to that point financially. Our financial house is a mess. And so now we are at a point where I think the world understands that the Fed has painted themselves into a corner. If they raise rates any higher than they are right now, well, they blow up the entire system. It's already, teetering on an edge with the banking system and the insurance companies loaded with treasuries, all of which are over leveraged and undercapitalized. And if they choose the path that all politicians have forever, which is inflation, going all the way back to Roman times. In fact, that's why there are ridges on the sides of coins, because the Roman politicians would Well, they would cut the edges of the coins ever so lightly to pay their soldiers who were fighting wars all around the world. I mean, does that sound familiar? And and they would choose inflation over austerity, going back as far as you can. It's much easier to get reelected. It's much easier to keep the people, you know, in the dark if you choose inflation. And that's what we're doing. Not only that, the numbers in which we measure inflation are so skewed that they want us to believe inflation's at 3.5%. No, it's not. Look at shadow stats from John Williams' website, shadowstats.com, where he just uses the metrics that they used to use before they changed them to fit their inflationary agenda. And inflation is much closer to 10 or 11%. And wouldn't you know it, the post office just raised stamps by 10 or 11%. I think it's 10. Point of it is that they know what inflation is, but the rest of us, well, we're not supposed to know the truth. I think we're in trouble, brother. And I think you're seeing that in a manifestation of much higher cryptocurrencies and precious metals higher than anyone I know ever thought possible. And well, it's just beginning as far as I'm concerned. And I think I can show you guys that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And, you know, look, and even on a more specific level, there's a gold guy on a crypto guy's show, right? And the reason for that is because we both identify that all of the things that you just pointed out really come to this amazing crossroads, right? This amazing intersection of technology and innovation that we're moving to with distributed ledger technology and these new value protocols and payment networks and rails that are being introduced right as we speak. And this transition is happening at the peak of a crisis that we see coming in the way of financial. And, you know, what is going to help underpin that? Gold, God's money, the same thing that has always helped underpin the financial system. Every time there's been a reset, gold is involved in that reset. And it's no mistake to me why we're seeing these numbers start to move in a direction that is starting to recognize and embrace the fact that there is some kind of transition coming. There is going to be a come to Jesus moment where we're all going to have to see how this is going to play out. And what does that look like to you, Andy?
Well, you know, I'm really glad that you mentioned it that way. It's always bothered me that it had to be an either or situation, and this I guess you could say, look, when it comes to cryptos and when it comes to precious metals, we should be allies. We should be complementary to one another. We all walk in to the door for the same reason, the understanding that things are a mess and economically and politically and all of the things that attract people's understanding of the why to buy crypto or the why to buy precious metals. We're on the same team. We should not be adversarial. It doesn't have to be either or. Because I think the only difference, if there is a difference, and typically the people that buy precious metals are walking in that door and looking to preserve, and they're concerned about not so much return on, but return of. The people who walk in the door for cryptocurrencies, typically, if I'm painting a broad brush, walk into the door for the exact same reasons in terms of fundamentally, but are more concerned about making a little bit of profit. So if that's the case, and you can see the potential that the cryptocurrencies offer for profit, you can see that. And what I'm saying is take a little bit of money off the table and put it into, like you said, into God's money. And I think that is a way where we should all be aligned in terms of not either or, not being one has to be mutually exclusive of the other, but complementary. And I think it's a mistake to not do it that way. I own a little bit of both, and having a complementary relationship with the two only strengthens the portfolio completely and totally. And that's just the way that I look at it. And that's why I'm glad to come on your show. I'm glad to come and speak at the XRP event, because I think it's important that people have open minds and look at this complementary. And I want to talk about what's going on with gold and why I think this time it is different. I mean, it just feels different to me. And you know, and I can dovetail it into, a lot of people have heard me talk about the BRICS, and a lot of people have heard me talk about my feelings regarding where we're ultimately going with this new union of countries joining together. And I think I've been doing it for 4 years and was saying it long before anyone else. And it scares me. I don't say it to be braggadocious, Brad. It scares me how fast things are coming together. And if we take a look at the countries that are massively accumulating gold and silver, it is the countries in the East. If we look at India, for example, India over the last 2 years has purchased over 400 million ounces of silver. And in fact, here just recently in the month of February, those numbers surged by 260%. In last year, they purchased 3,625 tons, way more than anyone else in the world, way more. And already in the first couple of months of this year, they've purchased 2,932 tons of silver. It's almost the 400 million ounces that they purchased in the last 2 years is almost exactly the amount that has left the COMEX. See, the West understands what we've been doing to hold back the price of gold and silver. And they understand, or the East does rather, and I'm going to show you this in a minute, and they understand it, and they've been using it against us like jiu-jitsu, where you use your opponent's leverage against you. And they've been draining the exchanges. The COMEX is seeing record withdrawals over the last several years, and it's being bled dry, using the suppression, the paper suppression of the Western market against us. And the same thing is true with the London Metals Exchange. It's the lowest level of silver holdings ever, and they're being bled dry by countries like India, like China, who are using the suppression of the paper price to accumulate it. And the price has been suppressed for a lot of reasons. It's been suppressed for a very, very, very long time. And we don't have enough time to get into that today, but we should talk about that maybe next Friday when we talk. I just want you to know there is no debate about the suppression of precious metals. But I want you to hear something and understand. You see, these countries, I believe, have said enough is enough, and they are using any and every opportunity to drain the exchanges. And so there was a report that just came out recently, and it was written by, or was an interview by a man who is a Russian finance minister, and his name is Yuri Ushakov. Now, for the past 3 years, I've been screaming to everyone, BRICS will issue a common settlement currency, and it will be pegged to a basket of commodities. Before I even say the basket of commodities, if we go back to 2019, Brad, gold is the only tier one asset other than US dollars. It was revalued. It was reclassified as a tier one reserve asset in 2019 by the Bank of International Settlements. So, you know, you have dollars and US treasuries and gold. And as far as central banks are concerned, it is a riskless asset, I believe, and I think they believe, will be used with a marriage of blockchain to back a new system, because this system, too many people have pissed in the punch bowl and no one's going to drink that punch ever again. You cannot screw the people over and over and over again for all of these years before they finally say we're done. This is where you see a marriage of blockchain and gold. And this is Zoltan Pozar's, Bretton Woods 3, where we are now. Where Bretton Woods 1, where the dollar took over for the pound sterling. Bretton Woods 2, where the dollar became the petrodollar. And now Bretton Woods 3, where a system that will be explained by commodities and transparency, where blockchain and gold meet to give credibility to a system that's completely and totally lost it. There is no other reason that the most powerful, well-funded, and well-informed central bank on the planet would just out of nowhere after 75 years say, okay, yeah, well, let's make gold a tier one asset. And if you look over the last 3 years, the central banks, actually going back to 2017, the central banks continue year over year over year to buy more gold and more silver than they ever have, ever in central bank history, ever, nonstop. Keep buying it, keep buying it. Not only that, they're repatriating it, removing counterparty risk, bringing it home, sending it from the LBMA, the London Metals Association, and from the COMEX market to India or to China or to Russia. And these are the countries that produce more and accumulate more. But check this out. So, guy says, a lot of people have been bummed out that there wasn't a common currency issued in August. I said, don't worry about it. In cryptocurrency speak, they're waiting for mass adoption. 10 countries are in the BRICS right now. Another 36 have formally applied. When you talk about the swath of human population, another 20 have informally applied. You're talking as it is right now, the BRICS represent, when you throw in the Belt Road Initiative, which has every OPEC country on it, and the Eurasian Economic Union and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, about 85% of human population, the majority of all the oil and natural gas production, the majority of all of the commodity production, both soft and hard. And by the way, the Chinese bought the London Metals Exchange 3 years ago or so. The LME is not precious metals. It's all everything else, copper, steel, tin, everything. They own it. And now they're warehousing those metals in China that are being traded in London. They're striking deals all around the world, in Africa, in South America. They're building oil refineries, gold mines, silver mines, roads, bridges, maritime channels, bringing the resources out. Mutually cooperative. They are connecting the world in a cooperative manner while the West sits with its thumb up its you-know-what, going around in a coercive manner, trying to maintain its hegemony, just like the Romans did at the end of their reign many years ago. But history doesn't always repeat, but it certainly rhymes. So let me go back to what this gentleman said. And look, the next meeting is in October. The BRICS meeting, and maybe they'll issue the new common currency. Maybe they won't. Maybe they will. But let me tell you what he says. He says, we are producing a common currency. And he says the idea of the currency will be two baskets. Now, we've known this. Sergei Glaziev, the Russian finance minister, has been saying this for years. I've been saying it 1,000 times. There will be two baskets backing this new currency. A basket of local currencies. We've known that. And a basket of commodities. We've known that. What is the only other tier one reserve asset? Gold. What are all the central banks purchasing? Gold. Oh, yeah. He then says it should be in digital form. Really? We know that too. It will be a digital blockchain-based form that, like the Project M Bridge, where they just developed it between China and Singapore and the United Arab Emirates, where they can trade cross-border with their central bank digital currencies. And I guess you could say this fits hand in glove with XRP and these kinds of things. So this is going to all happen, right? We know this. He says it's going to happen this way. It's going to be transparent, and it will be something that is not part of the ability of the Western SWIFT system to sanction and to our brain dead, in the words of our brain dead Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, in Brazil, in Russia's backyard, a member of BRICS, a charter member of BRICS, she says just a few weeks ago, we need to confiscate the Russian reserves, not just sanction, and give it to the Ukraine. You see, this is the pushback. This is the rallying cry where a country can go in coercively and say, well, Brad, if we don't like the way you're doing shit, well, we're going to confiscate your assets. And the rest of the world is saying, here's the pushback. Anyway, so all of this stuff up to now we've known and we've been talking about. And here's the part I want you all to understand, and this is how they are doing it. And he says the second part of this new system will be price. For the moment. Price is determined by Western speculation. We produce these commodities and we consume them, but we do not have our own price mechanism, which will balance supply and demand. Instead, what they do is they issue COMEX contracts where right now silver is rehypothecated almost 1,800%, meaning if everyone stood for delivery, 17 people get the shaft and 1 people gets their metal. The other people get cash settlement, force majeure. The exchange is exposed for what it is, a fractionally reserved scam. And they know this. Anyways, he says during the COVID pandemic, the price of oil fell to nearly zero. Now, he's wrong there. Based upon this stupid fractionalized COMEX system, silver fell to -40 a barrel. And that was because you had all the tankers lined up in the Gulf of Mexico and whatnot, couldn't get into port. And so oil in essence went to -40 a barrel. Anyways, here's where it gets cool. It's impossible to make any strategic planning for economic development if you do not control prices of basic commodities. Here it is. price formation with this new currency will get rid of the Western exchanges of commodities. Bingo, there it is right there. You have to understand that what's happening is that these countries are using our own hubris, our own stupidity, our own manipulation of these assets to make our bond market seem stronger, to make our dollar seem stronger, because gold and silver, these commodities, are the canary in the mine shaft. They are inversely correlated to one another. They are not commodities. They have been money for over 5,000 years. They are wealth that has outlived everything the world's ever thrown at it. 2 world wars, German hyperinflation, the Great Depression, every pandemic. And what are the assets that every single government are accumulating? Precious metals. But the Chinese, they go much further. They're buying all the base metals, the commodities. They're doing everything, and they are using our trade imbalance and our stupidity to do so. So when you see gold right now at $2,405 and silver at $2,944, and all of this is happening faster and faster and faster and faster, well, it just so happens that we are getting to the biggest election in the history of this country in November, and this massive BRICS meeting in October. You guys, you ain't seen shit yet, and it's just beginning. And I just want us to know that we are on the same side, whether it be cryptocurrency or precious metals. It shouldn't be either or. It should be both. Open your mind and look at this as being something we're on the same side of the team, and we only strengthen our arguments and our portfolio by having a little bit of each. And that's why I'm so glad to be here with you and all the guys I talk with about XRP or about any cryptocurrency. Open your eyes, open your mind, and have a little bit of both, and you will only strengthen your position in the end. And I think times are going to prove that out here pretty quickly in real time.
Oh, I think so. And it's so well said, Andy. And, you know, just to go to the point, you made so many great points, but I'll just grab a couple out of there. Physical gold versus paper gold. You want physical gold because you don't want to be one of those 17 standing there with your hand out and you not got anything. If you get physical gold, you own it. It's in your hand. That's what you get with Miles Franklin. And I also want to add in the other point you made too is about that union between, you know, precious metals and the value protocols and networks. You know, the mBridge, we know for a fact from James Wallace from Ripple that mBridge is in fact one of the pilots of the XRP ledger as mBridge. So is it the only pilot for mBridge or is it just one of them? That we don't know, but we do know from him. And the native token, the way they assess the XRP ledger is not XRP on the ledger. The native token is CBDCs and stablecoins. And XRP is just a bridge where it's needed when needed. You don't have to use it unless you need it. And I love that because you're not forcing something on someone just for using your network. Now, another amazing point about all of this kind of coming together here and talking about how all these things complement one another, we're looking at like this moment here in the US where now we're hearing the Senate say they're introducing a stablecoin bill in the next week and a half, and both the House and Senate are saying there's a bipartisan agreement and we could get this done this year. And Andy, I think that's the biggest signal from the United States Congress letting us know that that crap storm is on its way, because that stablecoin is about making the digital money that's prudentially regulated for the internet. That's your digital dollars that's prudentially regulated for the internet, just like email is on the internet now, right? But the funny thing is that it's also, that bill means tokenization of real world assets. And that's the larger part of this. And it gets into tokenizing commodities like gold and precious metals and all kinds of other stocks, bonds, and derivatives. So the stablecoin bill getting passed this year tells me 25, 26, we got some kind of collapse correction coming, because that's when everything's going to get tokenized and moved on to these new payments networks.
Yeah, and Kristalina Georgieva, the head of the IMF, said any CBDC that is not pegged to something is just fiat. And what is the logical thing? It would be gold, which we just saw on the Project mBridge, by the way, in late 2023, the first ever cross-border gold transaction using the digital yuan. And you're right, I like how you mentioned it is the rails. So this is what I mean. The rails are transacting gold and stable coins, and it's together. I mean, it's so symbiotic. And I think that's the most important thing to take away from this, is that to say either or is making a mistake. And I really do believe that. I do believe that there will be a digital outcome with all of this. There will be a central bank digital currency. When you have Lael Brainerd, the number 2 at the U.S. government in terms of economic advisory, she ran point with MIT in development of it. She just issued Fed Now. I mean, we are moving in that direction. There is no question about it. Fed Now is like Venmo or Zelle, backed by the Federal Reserve. These things are happening in real time, and there is no question about it. And you're a very smart guy, Brad. You understand the inner workings, if you will, or the plumbing or the rails, and that is very, very important to have a peer into that, to look into that, and to see what it looks like. And I think that the only way that you ever get people to ever trust a system again is to have transparency, like a ledger, like a blockchain, with something pegged to it to give it legitimacy, where it can't be inflated away the way that governments have chosen, all the way back to the beginning of time. And so, this is why I'm excited to be here with you today and to continue to do this as often as possible and to speak in Las Vegas, because we're all on the same team, brother. And I think it's only going to become more and more obvious as time goes on that indeed that is a true statement. And rather than sticking to one team, you know what, I'd rather be on both and hedge my bet.
Yeah, I feel the same way, and I know my audience does too. And I remind them right now to go sign up at milesfranklin.com and put in Dig Gold in your referral code. And Andy, we are so grateful and honored to have you, Lynette Zhang, and Jason Cousins from Glint on stage at XRP Las Vegas. The conversation is going to be remarkable. I cannot wait to hear that dialogue between all of you. It is going to be incredible. I already know it is.
Well, both of them are very good friends of mine and business associates, and only to get better. And by the way, one last thing, our prices on our website, we have another new website coming out in June, but the prices on the website are higher. We only allow purchases up to 10 grand. If you want the most competitive price, which is probably going to be as competitive as anything you'll find in the country, if not more, send us an email and say Brad sent us to info@milesfranklin.com. You can ask questions about anything you've heard here or anything else, or just ask for the price list. I think you'll be very surprised to see just how good those prices we keep closer to the vest really are. Want your listeners to have the best prices possible, and they will be as good or better as anything you'll find in the country.
And that is true.
milesfranklin.com.
That's right, because I'm a customer too. I can speak to it. I just bought some silver yesterday or the day before. So I love going to Miles Franklin and getting my precious metals, and you should too. Andy Schectman, Miles Franklin, thank you so much, Andy. Don't go anywhere.